Fine. Good evening and welcome all to this another Zoom meetup session of Support India, where we are going to talk about functional recovery post-stroke, constraints, facilitators, and exercises. This is meet is being presented by our group members, Dr. Hanzala and Dr. Stephen, who are also participants on our stroke support groups. So very kind of them to take the time. Probably we'll have a presentation for about 30 odd minutes, followed by a Q&A session. Meanwhile, you can certainly put your queries in the chat box as you get them, and we will take them once we open the session. And after the presentation is finished, we can probably even have a small audio session, Q&A session for about 15-20 minutes or more, where you can raise your hand, ask, and we'll come to you and ask you to speak up. So thank you very much again, and thank you for being here. And over to you now, Dr. Hanzala and Dr. Stephen. Thank you.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, Dr. Hanzala.
Okay. Good evening, one and all. Thank you for the wonderful welcome. We'll start with the presentation. As you read already, the topic is functional recovery post-stroke, constraints, facilitators, exercises. So after stroke, there are multiple impairments and everyone wants a good recovery. But as stroke is different to all, similarly, recovery is also different to all. As the topic said, constraints and facilitators. So constraints means limitations. What are the factors which limit your recovery, and facilitators, obviously, which are the factors which help in improving your rate of recovery and progressing it faster. Along with that, we'll also include some exercises which will help you to promote recovery. So basically, we know that stroke is caused by interruption of the blood flow to the brain. Now, it can either be with due to a clot formation or due to a hemorrhage. The incidence and prevalence, as you can see, the cumulative incidence of stroke is about 105 to 150 per lakh persons per year. This is the global incidence rate, and so you can say that stroke is the second leading cause of chronic adult disability throughout the world. Okay. I cannot see the slide clearly. Okay, fine. In this figure, you can see the diagram of a brain. Previous slide, please, Stephen. Okay. So in this slide, as you can see the figure, there's a brain, and on the left side, you can see some structures which are called as neurons. Now, neurons are the basic functional units of the brain. That is, the brain, the spinal cord, and the entire nervous system is constructed of these neurons. They are very essential in recovery. They are the foremost part, and the connections of which are essential in recovery. So what happens is that when there's a stroke, the connection between these neurons are interrupted, and these neurons start dying. Based on the location and you can say the area of which we can predict what is the impairment level and what will be the further recovery level. Next slide, please. Okay, now when we talk of recovery, basically recovery is of two types, that is neurological recovery and functional recovery. There are too many. Okay, neurological recovery and functional recovery. As we know, initially after stroke, the hand becomes spastic, the limbs become spastic, the range of motion decreases, there are multiple deficits which are seen. So imagine that initially after stroke, your hand is in this position. Gradually, after 1 month, 3 months, or after a specific period of time, after multiple exercises and stuff, your hand is able to move this much. You are able to raise your hand this much. So the movement is there. The arm movement that was restricted just immediately after stroke has again come back. But the important point is, with that arm movement that is now available, are you able to do the normal daily functional activities or not? So achieving this, we'll say, is neurological recovery. Whereas if we say that there is a box on a shelf and with this range, you have to get that box and bring it down. So whether you're able to do that daily activity, that task is what is about functional recovery. So now I hope you are clear with what is neurological recovery and what is a functional recovery. Now there are multiple factors on which both neurological recovery and functional recovery depend. Previous slide, please. Stephen, can you go to the previous slide, please? Yeah. So we said
recovery post-stroke. Yeah.
No, but this one, recovery post-stroke. Okay. So here we can see two types of recovery, neurological and functional. Now, neurological recovery depends on what was the pathogenesis. That is, how did the stroke occur? Whether it was an ischemic stroke, whether it was a hemorrhagic stroke, because all these play an important, crucial role in determining the recovery status. Along with that, what is important for neurological recovery is what was the place where the stroke has occurred in the brain. If you can see the figure of the brain on the right side, there are multiple areas which have been highlighted. For example, in the posterior portion, if you see the blue highlighted area, which is a secondary visual area. Now that area is essential for a clear vision and all the visual acuity. So if you have a stroke which affects that portion of the area, you can see deficits along with that. Like you can see multiple patients complain of blurred vision or double vision or such constraints. So similarly, if you see some other area, all the areas in the brain have their own specific functions. So again, recovery, neurological recovery especially, depends on which area of the stroke of the brain has been affected by stroke. When we talk of functional recovery, so functional recovery is influenced by external environment, by the continuity of rehabilitation and by your own motivation. You would have heard many people say, keep practicing, do one exercise 100 times per day, karte raho, right? The more you use it, the more it will be better. So all these things are that how much you engage in the normal activities of daily living, how much you engage your kinetic side in the activities of daily living. So those are all the factors which will help in improving the functional recovery. Next slide. I hope I'm not going very fast. Is the pace proper?
No, that's fine, Hansala ji. Maybe you can be a little bit slow at your pace. We have no constraints here. At your pace, whatever.
Okay. Okay. So with that being said, the two types of recovery, neurological and functional, we'll start about the topic that is the constraints and the facilitators of recovery. Now, you might have experienced as a stroke survivor or have observed your stroke survivor that in the initial few weeks till a month or so, the recovery is quite rapid. You can see very good improvement in the patient's functional status also, and his disability level is also reducing. Whereas this improvement steadily becomes, you can say, a little slower, or there's a plateau phase which reaches where such drastic improvements may not be seen. The reason for this is that in the initial few weeks and 1.5 months or something, there's something known as spontaneous recovery which takes place. Now, I'll tell you something about spontaneous recovery. Whenever there is an insult in the brain in the form of stroke or something, what happens is that the neurons die, and because of that, there's a reaction in the brain. जिसकी वजह से around that, the area that, suppose this is the ischemic region, and around this area there will be edema and multiple tissue changes, due to which there will be compression on the other brain structures and multiple things like that. It's a vicious cycle which goes inside the brain. So what happened as gradually these things subsides? We all know that the body has a self-healing capacity. So as the body tries to heal and cover all these things, there is a drastic improvement which is seen. There's a good pace to recovery in the initial few weeks till a month or so. And gradually we see that the recovery pace steadies. So this is what is written, that recovery is relatively rapid in the first few weeks and then it declines. And it is said that 3 to 6 months after stroke, the recovery has slowed so much that it is barely even noticeable. So that is why we say that the initial months you train yourself, engage yourself in more and more activities so that you get a better recovery. But still, with that being said, we can say that still there is no solid evidence that says that after 6 months there is no recovery. Recovery can come, but there are multiple factors on which it is dependent. Next slide. Next slide, please.
I can see it. Improvement probably occurs. That's the slide that you're talking about. Restitution, substitution, compensation.
No, then I cannot see it. I'm sorry. My
okay.
Stuck over here.
It will come after some time, maybe. Just.
Okay. Yeah. So improvement probably occurs through a complex combination of learning-dependent processes. As I said already, that the more you engage in normal functional activities, the more you use your paretic side, the more will be the recovery. Now, recovery takes place in 3 forms. That is, as you can see on screen, restitution, substitution, and compensation. So the thing about spontaneous recovery that I explained, that in the initial few weeks to a month, there is something like spontaneous recovery, natural recovery, which occurs in the brain itself due to multiple chemical changes that take place. So that is restitution. You might have seen people with stroke who have stroke episodes like TIA, that is a transient ischemic attack, where they have stroke due to some constriction of blood flow, but then the blood flow has been proper, or a revascularization process has been done, due to which the patient does not have any significant disabilities or impairments. He's again back to normal at his pre-stroke level. So this is a case of restitution where the recovery occurs in such a way that the person is having the functional status at his pre-stroke level. That no major impairments or disabilities are being seen. So that is what is restitution. When we talk of substitution, what happens is when we engage in exercises or in functional tasks, we keep using the paretic side. So there are changes in the neurons in the brain. If you remember the image of the brain and the neurons I showed, the connections between those neurons become better. There are more networks which are formed. That is termed as neuroplasticity. And so there's a better adaptation for the function that you're trying to do. So you can do the function on your own with the help of the paretic limb, though it will not be at the pre-stroke level, but it will be about meaningful and functional, such that the activity can be done. So that is about substitution and that form of a recovery. And the third is compensation, mainly about 3 to 6 months after stroke. If we are left with some impairments or disabilities which we cannot compensate, at least naturally by our own, then we have to modify the environment, or we have to use some external aids and appliances or some other factors. That is where compensation takes place. I hope it is clear. So until the 3rd month after stroke onset, a variable amount of spontaneous recovery can be seen, which is considered as the confounder of rehab intervention. This statement means to say that, as I already said, in the initial period, you see a drastic improvement in your neurological status, in your functional recovery status. So this cannot be contributed only to the interventions that you've done, but it is confounded, or you can say it is masked by the spontaneous normal recovery that the brain is giving by self-healing moves. However, after 3 months, where the spontaneous recovery, the natural mechanisms in the brain have ceased to cause recovery, Then it mainly depends on substitution, that is how many times you're performing that activity and how is the neuronal reconnection in the brain, about the neuroplasticity, and it is about the compensation strategies that you're going to use. Next slide. So with all that being said, this is what is taken from a research article and evidence which states that 66% of stroke patients cannot perform functionally relevant tasks with the affected hand. They're still able to do cross movement, that is carrying a bottle, shifting something, but the precision activities like you can say performing your own signature, or precision tasks, manipulating small objects, those are difficult to achieve. We are still continuing researches for that, but that has been a paucity in our research. So after seeing what are the types of recovery and what are the stages of recovery, we go on what are the factors on which post-recovery depends. I have classified the factors in two categories, that is modifiable factors and non-modifiable factors. As the name suggests, non-modifiable factors are those in which we cannot modify them. They are as it is and we have to accept them. Whereas modifiable factors are the factors which we can change and we can increase our recovery by using them in a positive. So non-modifiable factors, we have age. Generally, younger people recover better after stroke compared to old age people. Then gender. 6 months after stroke, it is seen that the females have a worse functional status compared to men. Again, on the type of stroke, hemorrhagic stroke survivors experience better recovery, early improvements in their functional status compared to ischemic stroke. Diabetes. People with diabetes have other comorbidities also, and if your diabetes is uncontrolled or if it is high, then it is difficult to recover from stroke. You need to do more efforts. Similarly, the site of affection, which area of the brain is involved, also gives us an idea about the impairment status of the person and his recovery status. Similarly, previous stroke, if a person has had a stroke and he's having another stroke, second or a third stroke, then it will be a little difficult to expect recovery and to get your functions back. Similarly, days of hospital and ICU stay. The more the hospitalization period, again, it shows that the prognosis of the condition can be poor. Sensory function, we definitely need multiple senses for performing our daily functions. We need the sense of touch. Whenever we are holding something, we need to know whether we've grasped it properly, we are reaching at that exact point or not, we are overshooting, we are undershooting. We are able to see that object properly. So sensory, multiple senses play an important, crucial role in recovery. Again, the cognitive status. The cognitive status when the patient is hospitalized also gives us an idea. If the patient has a good cognitive status, a good attention span, he is oriented to the person and place at the time of stroke or in the hospital stay, then we say that the recovery is expected to be good. And active finger extension. That is, in the initial phase of stroke, is the person able to extend his fingers actively? This is something which gives us an idea about the small activities, the small movements, whether they will come and how long will it take to recover that. So this was something about the non-modifiable factors which are crucial in recovery. The next on the modifiable factors are the environmental factors and the person's motivation towards it. Many times after stroke and with all the multiple disabilities and impairments, it becomes difficult that there's a question whether we'll be able to cope up with the condition or not. So what is important is that we be motivated and we keep performing activities and using the paretic limb, which will help us in improving the recovery status at the 3 to 6 months period. So So again, the same thing that I explained, younger age groups significantly have a good functional outcome post-stroke. Women at 6 months have slightly worse functional status. These are all data taken from researchers. So this is what is the epidemiological data. The next we said for the hemispheric contribution, that is whether you have suffered a right-sided brain stroke or left-sided brain stroke and how it affects. So generally in people with the right side affected brain stroke, there can be impairments like attention span can be affected, memory issues can be there, speech can be a problem, then many times they have a decreased awareness about themselves and the severity of their condition. So though you may see that they have multiple impairments and disabilities, they may not regard it. So this is some characteristics of the right-sided brain stroke patients, whereas in the same way, left-sided brain stroke survivors also have some different specific disabilities and impairments. Like many times they have difficulties in language, the fluency is not there, the comprehension is affected. They have problems in logic and understanding. Space problems, space perception is many a times reduced in those people. They may not have the depth perception. They will not be able to exactly point out where the object is lying in the environment. So similarly, we have certain specific set of constraints and facilitating factors associated with what kind of a stroke it is and which hemisphere of the brain is affected with. Next slide. As I already mentioned, hemorrhagic stroke and ischemic stroke. Hemorrhagic stroke survivors generally have a better chance of recovery, whereas ischemic stroke survivors take longer for that recovery to take place. However, currently, that strong level of evidence is not there to support this fact, but this is the thing which is, this is the dogma which has been believed till now. Along with that, diabetes, as we already said, if the HbA1c, that is your monthly status of diabetes, is more than 7%, it says that the diabetes is extremely high. And so along with multiple factors, the improvements which I expected are many times a little lower, because controlling that level of diabetes and then the body's capacity to heal oneself is a little slow at that time. So if the diabetes or the glucose level is extremely high, recovery is definitely affected. For people who have had an ischemic stroke, that is, a clot has been lodged in the brain vasculature and so your blood flow has been compromised. So if they reach the hospital in the window period about 3 to 4 hours, and if thrombolysis procedure is done, that is ATPase or something is given such that the clot has been broken, and if the blood supply has been restored, then the chances of stroke are significantly better, even though the disability, or you can say if the widespread area of the brain is affected. Still, if TPA is given in the window period, we can say that the patient can cope up with it and the recovery can be better. For recurrent stroke survivors, with multiple sensory impairments, either due to diabetes or other factors, sensory loss and cognitive impairments will again decline your chances of recovery. Next slide. And again, active finger extension, that is, whether you're able to extend your fingers actively in the initial few weeks or months of stroke will help us predict that. We've seen that the people who have been able to extend their fingers actively post-stroke in the duration of a few weeks to 1 month, they have a very good recovery, and the prehensile activities that are generally lacking for the people commonly are better achieved in those group of people. So these are some factors, the constraints and facilitators of functional recovery post-stroke. Now after that, I'd like to hand over the session to Dr. Stephen, who will tell you about the exercises and how they play a role in functional recovery.
Dr. Stephen, you can unmute yourself, I suppose, and maybe you can start your video also.
Am I audible right now?
Yes, we can hear you. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm sharing my screen. Just let me know if the screen is visible or not.
Yes, it is
It's
coming.
a blank screen.
It's coming now, yes.
Okay.
And maybe you can start your video also. I suppose we should be able to see the side video.
So, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to bring forward this. Hello.
I think there's a bandwidth
problem. I will just share the screen already.
Yes. Yeah.
I guess. Hello. Clearly audible, or is it?
Yes, audible. The screen is also there. Yes.
Okay. So I'm starting. अभी तक हमने जो देखा that was factors that affects the recovery of patient. So there were multiple factors, of course, but क्या ये factors are completely reliable? So the answer is no. मैंने अपने experience में देखा है कि even 88-year-old individual was able to recover within 1 month of stroke. And मैंने अपने experience में ये भी देखा है कि the patient who was 35 or 40 years was having difficulty even at 6 months. So yes, of course, this factors give us a good outcome, good assumption, but it is not a gold standard measure to provide a prognosis of a stroke patient. So of course, we should always keep this point in mind. These are good, but are not a gold standard measures. Okay. So next point that we are going to start is exercise or no exercise. Okay. कई बार स्ट्रोक के पेशेंट ये सोचते हैं कि एक्सरसाइज करनी चाहिए या नहीं करनी चाहिए, रिकवरी तो खुद से आ जाएगी, थोड़े टाइम में रिकवरी आ जाएगी. तो द आंसर इज ऑफ कोर्स यू शुड एक्सरसाइज. ओके. कई पेशेंट्स फिर ये बोलते हैं कि हम तो घर पे एक्सरसाइज करते हैं. So the point is exercise. What is exercise? Exercise is a physical activity that is planned, structured, and repetitive for the purpose of conditioning the body. Just if you are lifting your hands and leg multiple times, that is not an exercise. जो हम खुद से कभी कर लेते हैं उसे हम एक्टिविटी बोलते हैं, उसे हम एक्सरसाइज नहीं बोलते. Okay, so one thing should be kept in mind that exercise should be done and activity, of course, should be continued, but activity should not be misunderstood with exercise. Okay, should always go for physiotherapy exercise. So why to do exercise after stroke? So as you can see, ये एक रिसर्च है जो ये बोलता है कि फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी एक्सरसाइज से स्पास्टिसिटी कम होती है, मोटर रेंज ऑफ मोशन इंक्रीज होती है, कॉन्ट्रैक्चर प्रिवेंट होता है, स्ट्रेचिंग एक्सरसाइज से जॉइंट कॉन्ट्रैक्चर प्रिवेंट होता है, मसल शॉर्टनिंग प्रिवेंट होती है, स्पास्टिसिटी कम होती है, जॉइंट स्टिफनेस कम होती है, और फंक्शन इंप्रूव होता है, एंड न्यूरोमस्कुलर एक्सरसाइज से डेली लिविंग एक्टिविटी इंप्रूव होती है. So this all are the evidences that are various evidences. ये तो मैंने सिर्फ एक ही रखा है, but there are various evidences that says the same thing. So of course you should go for the exercise, you should go for the physiotherapy. Then many a time लोगों के ये डाउट होता है कि एक्सरसाइज कैसी होती है, कौन से टाइप की एक्सरसाइज होती है. सो बेसिकली मैंने एक्सरसाइज को 3 टाइप में अभी डिवाइड किया है. फर्स्ट इज रेस्टोरेटिव एक्सरसाइज, second is rehabilitative or compensatory exercise, and the third one is preventive or aerobic exercise. So अगर हम सिंपल लैंग्वेज में बोले कि restorative exercise क्या है? So restorative exercise is nothing but going back to your previous stage. जो स्ट्रोक के पहले आपका जो स्टेज था, जितना फंक्शनल एक्टिविटी आप स्ट्रोक के पहले कर रहे थे, अगर हम उस एक्टिविटी पे फोकस करें, अगर हम उससे अपना गोल बना के एक्सरसाइज करें, सो दैट इज कॉल्ड एन रेस्टोरेटिव एक्सरसाइज. जैसा डॉक्टर हंसला ने बताया कि विद इन द फर्स्ट मंथ देयर इज अ ग्रेटर चांस ऑफ रिकवरिंग, रेस्टिट्यूशन रिकवरी. Okay, so that is in that phase we can go for restorative exercise. Okay, so the goal is to go back to the previous stage before the stroke, be 100% normal or more than 95% normal. The second is rehabilitative or compensatory exercise. Now rehabilitative is or compensatory is हम सिंपल टर्म में बोल सकते हैं, एक शॉर्टकट ले रहे हैं हम. जैसे इफ यू आर नॉट एबल टू डू साइन और यू आर नॉट एबल टू राइट फ्रॉम योर राइट हैंड, और अगर आप लिखना और साइन करना अपने लेफ्ट हैंड पे शिफ्ट कर देते हो, तो दैट इज कॉल्ड रिहेबिलिटेटिव और कंपनसेटरी एक्सरसाइज. अगर आप राइट हैंड से खाना नहीं खा पा रहे पर अगर अभी आप लेफ्ट हैंड से खाना खा पा रहे हो, सो दैट इज कॉल्ड कंपनसेटरी एक्सरसाइज. अगर आप राइट हैंड से शर्ट को बटन नहीं कर पा रहे और अभी आप लेफ्ट हैंड से शर्ट को बटन कर पा रहे हो, सो दैट इज अ कंपनसेटरी एक्सरसाइज. ओके, सो दिस इज बेसिकली डिफरेंस बिटवीन रेस्टोरेटिव एक्सरसाइज एंड रिहेबिलिटेटिव और कंपनसेटरी एक्सरसाइज. द थर्ड वन इज प्रिवेंटिव और एरोबिक एक्सरसाइज. कई बार स्ट्रोक के पेशेंट ये करते हैं कि एक बार स्ट्रोक हुआ, 6 मंथ फिजियोथेरेपी ले लिया, ऑलमोस्ट रिकवर हो गए, 80-90% रिकवरी आ गई, फिर दे स्टॉप डूइंग एक्सरसाइज. एंड मैंने अपने एक्सपीरियंस में ऐसे पेशेंट देखे हैं जो इस तरह से करते हैं और उसके बाद आफ्टर 3-4 years they again had a stroke, second episode of stroke. So yes, if you had a stroke previously, there is more chance that you will have stroke again. So उसे prevent करने के लिए क्या करना है? तो if you want to prevent the second stroke or recurrent stroke, you should go for preventive exercise, that is aerobic exercise. यहाँ पे मैंने aerobic exercise का थोड़ा सा description दिया है. That is aerobic exercise कितनी करनी चाहिए? That is 3 times a week करनी चाहिए. Intensity आप अपने हिसाब से कर सकते हो, but what is suggested is within early phase you should start with low to moderate intensity, and at the later stage you should start with high intensity exercise. The exercise should be done 20 to 60 minutes for 3 days a week. Okay, और एक्सरसाइज किस टाइप की हो सकती है? सो दैट इज एरोबिक एक्सरसाइज. इट कुड बी कंटिन्यूअस एक्सरसाइज, सर्किट एक्सरसाइज, इंटरवल ट्रेनिंग, जो भी आपको सुटेबल हो उस तरीके से आपको एक्सरसाइज कंटिन्यू करनी है. So this was all about the type of exercise के basically difference क्या होता है exercise के type में. So which exercise you should do? ये सुनने के बाद आपको लगा होगा कि अभी हमें कौन सी exercise करनी चाहिए, रेस्टोरेटिव करनी चाहिए या compensatory करनी चाहिए या aerobic exercise करनी चाहिए. So ये depend करता है time since stroke, affection from the stroke, goal plan of the patient and need of the movement. So what does time since stroke means? कि चलो अभी स्ट्रोक को सिर्फ 10 days ही हुए, 15 days ही हुए, go for restorative exercise, do intensive therapy so that your goal would be achieved and you would go back to your previous pre-stroke stage. Okay. The second example हम लेके एक पेशेंट है जो 4 साल के बाद स्टार्ट कर रहा है, तो फॉर दैट पेशेंट यू शुड नॉट गो फॉर रिस्टोरेटिव एक्सरसाइज. 4 साल के बाद यू शुड गो फॉर कंपनसेटरी एक्सरसाइज. ओके, सो दिस इज टाइम बीइंग कि कौन से टाइम पे कौन सी एक्सरसाइज करनी चाहिए. बट ऑफ कोर्स किसी भी टाइम पे आप रिस्टोरेटिव एक्सरसाइज तो कर ही सकते हो. एंड व्हेनेवर देयर इज अ हाई लिमिटेशन, जब स्ट्रोक ज्यादा एरिया को अफेक्ट करता है और जब लिमिटेशंस होती है, सो इट इज सजेस्टेड दैट वी शुड स्टार्ट फ्रॉम कंपनसेटरी एक्सरसाइज. ओके, रिहेबिलिटेटिव एक्सरसाइज, ताकि पेशेंट अपना काम खुद से कर पाए, खाना खुद से खा पाए, वॉशरूम खुद से जा पाए, पानी खुद से पी पाए, ओके, कपड़े खुद के पहन पाए, बाथिंग कर सके खुद को. ओके, सो दिस सो इवन व्हेन larger area or the affection of stroke is more, you should go for compensatory exercise first so that patient becomes at least independent. And once the patient is independent, go for restorative exercise. Up to what extent would it work? It depends upon the practice and various factors that were previously shown by Dr. Zilla. Then third thing is goals and plan. So let's say there is a person जो rope climbing कर सकता था पहले, वो stroke के बाद rope climbing नहीं कर पा रहा. So restorative exercise उसे करनी चाहिए या नहीं करनी चाहिए, डिपेंड करता है उसका गोल है कि नहीं है, अभी उसको रोप क्लाइंब करना है कि नहीं करना है. इफ द पेशेंट इज राइट नाउ 60 years, रोप क्लाइंबिंग करने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ने वाली उनको. सो नेसेसरी टू गो फॉर रोप क्लाइंबिंग? आंसर इज नो. तब हमें सोचना है कि हम कौन सी एक्सरसाइज करेंगे. हम शायद कंपनसेटरी एक्सरसाइज कर सकते हैं. लेट अस से एक टीचर है who is having stroke, so उनके लिए लिखना important है. So we have to at that time go for restorative exercise, make him teach about writing. If the writing is not possible for that, then we should go for rehabilitation or shifting the writing from the opposite hand. And need of the moment, abhi zarurat kya hai? Like what is necessary right now? Is it okay if the patient is not able to perform the activity, or is it not okay? Okay. आप लोगों ने कई बार सुना होगा कि बहुत सारे अप्रोचेस होते हैं जिससे एक स्ट्रोक पेन को ट्रीट किया जा सकता है. Among them I have included many of them. Andy, Brainstorm, Wadsta, PNF, TOT, CIMT, therapy, GMI, MRP. इतने सारे approaches है. There is a conundrum. What should be done? What type of exercise should be provided to the patient? कई बार पेशेंट भी सोचते हैं कि नहीं मुझे एनडीटी करना है, नहीं मुझे टीओटी करना है, नहीं इसे तो पीएनएफ करवा रहे, मुझे पीएनएफ क्यों नहीं करवा रहे, इसे तो सीआईएमटी दिया जा रहा है, मुझे सीआईएमटी क्यों नहीं दिया जा रहा. सो वन ऑफ द थिंग आई वुड सजेस्ट टू द पेशेंट्स राइट नाउ इज डोंट गो इनटू व्हाट इज रिहेबिलिटेटिव अप्रोचेस. ये आपके लिए इतना इम्पोर्टेंट नहीं है. ओके. बट कुछ चीजें जानना, मैंने इतने सारे अप्रोचेस डाले. आई एम जस्ट गोइंग वेरी ब्रीफली फॉर द एक्सरसाइज दैट व्हिच शुड बी डन. ओके. सो सबसे अच्छा अप्रोच इसमें से कौन सा है? So this is not me, but the researchers are saying that TOT and CIMT is the best approach right now, followed by GMI and motor relearning program, followed by NDT and PNF, and others are having very least evidence. Okay, even maybe you should not practice it. But जितने थेरेपिस्ट है उन्हें शायद ये पता होगा कि we cannot provide TOT or modified CIMT to all the patients. तब क्या किया जा सकता है? So at that time we have to start with NDT or Brainstorm or PNF technique. Once the patient is having some sort of physical activity, then we can shift the patient to TOT or modified CIMT. But of course, TOT, CIMT researchers are suggesting are the best, and they are having very good effect. But मैंने अपने clinical experience में ये देखा है कि you can prescribe TOT and CIMT to all the patient. तो कई बार हमें mirror therapy देना पड़ता है, NDT देना पड़ता है, PNF देना पड़ता है, and that's how it should be done. But whenever possible to a patient, you should go for TOT or you should go for CIMT. So we will just see a little bit brief of what is TOT and what is CIMT. CIMT is a constant induced movement therapy. ये originate हुआ था force use से. मतलब जो नॉन अफेक्टेड हैंड है स्ट्रोक सर्वाइवल का, जो पेन का नॉन अफेक्टेड हैंड है उसे बांध देना है और दूसरे अफेक्टेड हैंड से एक्टिविटीज करवानी है. तो कई लोग ये मानते हैं कि बस इतना ही है CIMT, बट CIMT इज नॉट जस्ट मेकिंग पेशेंट वर्क विद द अफेक्टेड हैंड. देयर आर 3 मेजर प्रिंसिपल जो मुझे आज इंक्लूड करने थे. मैंने सोचा कि कई पेशेंट्स यहाँ पर होंगे जो CIMT खुद से घर पे कर सकता है, तो आपके लिए ये जानना इम्पोर्टेंट है कि CIMT कैसे यूज करना है. और CIMT सिर्फ एक हाथ को बांध के दूसरे हाथ से एक्टिविटी करना नहीं होता. इट इज लिटिल बिट मोर देन दैट. So first principle is shaping, that is intensive practice. Now CIMT और modified CIMT दो अलग अलग चीजें हैं, but research ये कहता है कि CIMT और modified CIMT दोनों के इफेक्ट ऑलमोस्ट सेम है, और modified CIMT के साइकोलॉजिकल इफेक्ट्स बेहतर है CIMT से. सो क्लिनिकली मॉडिफाइड CIMT अभी ज्यादा प्रिस्क्राइब किया जाता है CIMT के जगह पर. सो यहाँ पर जो सब लिखा है दैट इज फॉर CIMT. जो शेपिंग प्रैक्टिस है दैट शुड बी डन फॉर 6 to 10 hours अ डे फॉर CIMT, जबकि मॉडिफाइड CIMT में हम 2 to 3 hours 2 से 3 डे तक का ट्रीटमेंट सेशन देता है. Then the second thing is constraint, that is non affected hand है, जैसे कि let us say पेशेंट का राइट हैंड अफेक्ट हुआ है स्ट्रोक से, तो हम क्या करेंगे, लेफ्ट हैंड को बांध देंगे और लेफ्ट हैंड के रिस्ट और फिंगर्स को हम मिड से कवर कर देंगे. और थर्ड प्रिंसिपल है ट्रांसफर पैकेज. ये सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट है, ट्रांसफर ऑफ पैकेज. ओके, सो इसमें ये क्या है, कई बार थेरेपिस्ट क्लिनिक्स में CIMT प्रोवाइड करता है, बट CIMT का ट्रांसफर पैकेज दे डू नॉट गिव. व्हाट इज ट्रांसफर ऑफ पैकेज? सो जो चीज आप क्लिनिक में करते हो उसे आप डे टू डे एक्टिविटी में कैसे यूज कर सकते हो, या तो अपने घर पे कैसे यूज कर सकते हो, दैट इज कॉल्ड ट्रांसफर पैकेजिंग, which is the most important principle of CIMT. As we said, सभी पेशेंट को हम CIMT और TOT नहीं दे सकते, तो सिंपली अगर बोले कि कौन सा पेशेंट CIMT के लिए सिलेक्ट किया जा सकता है, तो जिस रिस्ट थोड़ा सा एक्सटेंड किया जा सकता है, जिसके रिस्ट में लेट अस से 1/3 मोबिलिटी है, 1/2 और 1/3 मोबिलिटी अभी भी बचा रिस्ट में, वो, और जिसके फिंगर्स में थोड़ा ओपनिंग और क्लोजिंग है, वो पेशेंट हम CIMT और TOT के लिए यूज कर सकते हैं. तो उस पेशेंट को हम CIMT और TOT प्रिस्क्राइब कर सकते हैं. अगर रिस्ट की मूवमेंट नहीं है कोई भी और फिंगर्स की कोई भी मूवमेंट नहीं है, तो उस पेशेंट को हमें CIMT नहीं देना चाहिए. mechanism responsible for improvement in IMD. Okay, ये एक important चीज है, non-use phenomena. तो हमें लगता है this patient has a potential to do this much activity, but the patient is not doing such activity. The reason behind that is the patient has learned non-use phenomena. That is, कोई भी चीज अगर आप नहीं करोगे तो आप वो करना भूल जाएंगे. लेट अस से अभी यहाँ पर कई सारे पार्टिसिपेंट्स है, उसमें से अगर हाई जंप करने को बोले तो हमारे में से बहुत कम लोग हाई जंप कर पाएंगे, जबकि कुछ होंगे पार्टिसिपेंट्स जो स्पोर्ट्स में एक्टिव होंगे, वो लोग अभी भी हाई जंप बहुत अच्छे से कर पाएंगे, राइट? क्योंकि हम लोगों ने अभी उस चीज को छोड़ दिया है, तो हम वो चीज नहीं कर पाएंगे. सो दैट इज कॉल्ड अ नॉन यूज फिनोमिना, कि हम उसे करना भूल गए हैं, बट हम उसे कर सकते हैं अगर हम कोशिश करें तो. और सेकंड मैकेनिज्म है रीऑर्गेनाइजेशन, और जिसे हम मेडिकल लैंग्वेज में कहते हैं न्यूरोप्लास्टिसिटी, जो डॉक्टर हंसला ने पहले समझाया था. सो CIMT वर्क्स ऑन न्यूरोप्लास्टिसिटी एंड रिडक्शन ऑफ लर्न नॉन यूज फिनोमिना. So this was about the CIMT. Now going forward for task-oriented training, it depends upon the movement system. And task-oriented training के लिए सबसे important चीज है task, which should be goal-directed, functional behavior. और ये goal-directed कौन select करेगा? वो therapist नहीं, but patient select करेगा कि patient को क्या करना है. It is not necessary for patient to learn how to eat with the affected hand. Agar if he is okay with eating from the non-affected hand, so a therapist should not force or should not make the task-oriented training without consulting, without referring to the patient. So goal should be directed to functional behavior. Okay. कई बार पेशेंट से बोलते हैं कि मेरा एल्बो मूवमेंट नहीं करता, मेरा रिस्ट मूवमेंट नहीं करता, मेरा नी पूरा पीछे नहीं बैंड होता, तो ये कोई इसकी कोई ट्रीटमेंट कर सकते हैं? सो देखा जाए तो इसकी कोई ट्रीटमेंट की जरूरत नहीं है. ट्रीटमेंट किसकी जरूरत है? जो आपको फंक्शन में अफेक्ट कर रहा है। क्या आपका नी पूरा बैंड नहीं हो रहा, उससे आपको कोई डिफिकल्टी हो रही है? क्या आप उससे टॉयलेट नहीं जा पाए, या तो नीचे नहीं बैठ पा रहे? क्या एल्बो बैंड नहीं हो रहा आपका, तो क्या आपका खाना पीना अफेक्ट हुआ है कि नहीं हुआ? वो चीज मैटर करती है। कई बार जो पेशेंट बोलते हैं कि पूरा हैंड हम मोड़ नहीं पाते, so that thing can be improved or cannot be improved. It has no need to be improved if the function is preserved. मैं अपना एक एक्सपीरियंस शेयर करूंगा. Before few years there was a patient of stroke. Within 6 months, the patient achieved 95% of his functional capacity to pre-stroke stage. But the patient had this idea कि मुझे रस्सी पे चलना है. Like he always kept on saying कि मैं सीधा एक लाइन में नहीं चल पाता, मुझे रस्सी पे चलना है. That patient was around 55 to 60 years old. The patient was a government worker. That goal is not at all necessary for that patient. रस्सी पे चल के क्या करना है? Of course, right? But yes, if the goal is of the patient, try, but that is not necessary. See which goal is what करेंगे. Because task oriented training और CIMT का जो dosage है, it goes from 2 hours to 10 hours a day. Repetition की बात करें तो science तो ये कहता है कि per day that should be 1,000 repetition of a movement. Okay, so एक ही चीज लर्न करने के लिए 1000 मूवमेंट, और स्ट्रोक में कई सारी चीजें अफेक्ट होगी. सो उन सभी के लिए क्या हम 1000 मूवमेंट पर डे कर सकते हैं? The answer according to me is no, and according to my experience is also no. तो हमें फर्स्ट गोल देखना पड़ेगा, कितना रेलेवेंट है, कितना नीडफुल है, और उससे पेशेंट को क्या फायदा हो सकता है. Right? We have to select such a goal. Now, task oriented, as we said, is dependent upon movement system. So, looking at the movement system, I guess the picture is so hazy, but थोड़ा बहुत अगर आप देख पा रहे हो तो आप ये देख सकते हो कि एक टास्क है, इंडिविजुअल है और एनवायरमेंट है. टास्क डिफरेंट टाइप के होते हैं: स्टेबिलिटी, मोबिलिटी और मैनिपुलेशन. स्टेबिलिटी मतलब बैलेंस के लिए, मोबिलिटी मतलब चलने के लिए, और मैनिपुलेशन मतलब फाइन मूवमेंट जो हम करते हैं, हाथ से लिखते हैं या फिर ग्लास पकड़ते हैं, वो हमारा मैनिपुलेशन हो गया. इंडिविजुअल फैक्टर्स अगर हम देखें तो है कॉग्निशन, परसेप्शन एंड एक्शन. कॉग्निशन इज पेशेंट्स एबिलिटी टू परसीव and integrate the information. Perception is ability to understand the sensory stimulation. Action is ability to perform the movement. And environment is regulatory or non-regulatory. Simple example अगर मैं आपको दूँ regulatory environment, तो वो होगा कि अगर आप रूम में sit to stand कर रहे हो, so that is a regulatory environment. अगर sit to stand एक्टिविटी आप बस चलती हुई बस में या चलती हुई ट्रेन में कर रहे हो, तो वो हो गया आपका नॉन रेगुलेटरी एनवायरनमेंट. सो टास्क ओरिएंटेड ट्रेनिंग कैसे दिया जाता है? सो फर्स्ट वी हैव टू डिसाइड व्हाट इज द गोल ऑफ द पेशेंट. देन वी हैव टू सी इफ द पेशेंट इज एबल टू अचीव दैट टास्क और नॉट. अगर पेशेंट कर पाता है, we should increase the difficulty. If the patient is not able to achieve the task, we should modify one of this thing. We should modify the environment, we should modify the task, and gradually we should train the patient. That patient would be able to do the activity at his own home or in any social condition that can come to the patient. So this is all about task oriented training and CIMT. न्यूरोप्लास्टिसिटी के थोड़े प्रिंसिपल्स है तो जानना मेरे हिसाब से बहुत जरूरी है. फर्स्ट इज यूज इट और लूज इट. जैसा हमने बोला था, लर्न नॉन यूज फिनोमेना होता है कि अगर आप कोई चीज नहीं करोगे तो आप भूल जाओगे. तो यूज इट और लूज इट. आप जितना यूज करोगे उतना वो फ्लरिश होता जाएगा, और जितना यूज नहीं करोगे वो डिटोरिएट होता जाएगा. The second is use it and improve it. जितना आप यूज करोगे उतना आप इम्प्रूव करोगे. कोई भी क्रिकेटर होता है तो आप वो कंटिन्यूअसली क्रिकेट खेलते हैं और कंटिन्यूअसली प्रैक्टिस करते हैं इम्प्रूव होने के लिए. तो जस्ट बिकॉज आप क्रिकेटर हो दैट डज नॉट मीन आप प्रैक्टिस नहीं करोगे. प्रैक्टिस तो करना ही पड़ेगा. दैट इज यूज इट एंड इम्प्रूव इट. थर्ड इज स्पेसिफिसिटी. आप जिस टास्क की प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हो आप उस टास्क में इंप्रूव करोगे। अगर आप ग्लास से पानी पीने की प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हो तो आप ग्लास से पानी पीने की एक्टिविटी में इंप्रूव करोगे, आप दूसरी एक्टिविटी में शायद इंप्रूव नहीं करोगे उससे। बट अगर आप ग्लास से पानी पीने की एक्टिविटी कर रहे हो तो उस पॉसिबल है कि उससे आप खाना खाने को भी आप इंप्रूव कर सको। उसे कहते हैं इंटरफेरेंस, जो लास्ट प्रिंसिपल है। फोर्थ और फिफ्थ, रिपीटेशन एंड इंटेंसिटी मैटर्स, कि कितनी बार करना चाहिए उसे। सो साइंस तो ये कहता है कि 1000 टाइम्स रिपीटेशन करना चाहिए, बट क्लिनिकली हम एडवाइस करते हैं पर डे अ मूवमेंट शुड बी रिपीटेड अराउंड मोर देन 100 टाइम्स। अगर आपको कोई चीज नहीं सीखनी है तो ट्राई टू डू इट मोर देन 100 टाइम्स। टाइम मैटर्स, सो एट व्हाट स्टेज द पेशेंट इज, दैट इज व्हाई कई बार ये कहा जाता है कि अगर पेशेंट फर्स्ट मंथ में है तो उसे दिन के 3 से 4 घंटे या 4 से ज्यादा घंटे एक्सरसाइज करनी चाहिए ताकि रेस्टिट्यूशन हो सके, ताकि वो अपने नॉर्मल स्टेज पे जल्दी से पहुंच सके। सो टाइम मैटर्स। और अगर कोई पेशेंट लेट अस से 4 इयर्स हो गया है या 3 इयर्स हो गया है, सो फॉर दैट पेशेंट न्यूरोप्लास्टिसिटी लाना डिफिकल्ट होता है, पर इट इज नॉट इम्पॉसिबल। पर इस पेशेंट में आपको रिपीटेशन भी ज्यादा करना पड़ेगा, स्पेसिफिक भी ज्यादा होना पड़ेगा, और टाइम ड्यूरेशन भी ज्यादा देना पड़ेगा। देन सेलियंस मैटर, जो भी एक्टिविटी हम कर रहे हैं वो रिवॉर्डिंग होनी चाहिए या तो बेनिफिशियल होनी चाहिए। दैट शुड, जो हमने टीओटी में बात किया था, इट शुड बी गोल डायरेक्टेड एक्टिविटी, तो इसका इफेक्ट आएगा। अगर आप गोल डायरेक्टेड एक्टिविटी नहीं करते, और गोल डायरेक्टेड एक्टिविटी जो नहीं है आपकी, अगर उसकी प्रैक्टिस आप दिन के 4 घंटे करते हो तो भी उसका इफेक्ट नहीं आएगा। सो आपका एक्टिविटी भी डिपेंड करता है। एज मैटर्स ऑफ कोर्स। जो यंग इंडिविजुअल होते हैं लेस देन 35 years, they have a better neuroplasticity capacity compared to more than 35 years. ट्रांसफर ऑफ प्रैक्टिस, जो हमने CIMT में बात किया था, ट्रांसफर ऑफ पैकेज, ये उसकी बात है कि अगर हम अपने क्लिनिक में तो वो चीज सीख लिया है, बट अभी उसको घर में अप्लाई करना है, वो सीखना सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट है। अगर आपने ये नहीं सीखा कि घर में या सोशल कंडीशन में उसे कैसे अप्लाई करना है, सो दैट ट्रीटमेंट इज क्वाइट वर्थलेस। Okay, so transfer of package is the most important principle. एंड 10th इज इंटरफेरेंस, जिसकी बात हमने की थी कि कोई दो टास्क जो थोड़े बहुत सिमिलर है तो वो उसकी एक प्रैक्टिस करने से आपको दूसरा टास्क में भी बेनिफिट होगा। So this is all about the principles of neuroplasticity that I think all the patients should be knowing. Okay. So last question, पेशेंट्स के माइंड में ये होता है कि हाउ मच शुड यू एक्सरसाइज। एक सिंपल रूल, जितना ज्यादा करोगे अच्छा है। जैसे हमने बोला 1000 रिपीटेशन साइंस बोलता है, बट वी से मोर देन 100 रिपीटेशन तो करना ही चाहिए। बट अगर आप 1000 रिपीटेशन से ज्यादा करते हो सो इट विल गिव यू अ बेटर रिजल्ट। इसका एक एग्जांपल, एक एक्सपीरियंस मैंने क्लिनिक में देखा था। व्हेन द पेशेंट वाज अबाउट 1.5 year ऑफ स्ट्रोक duration, the patient was not having any active wrist extension, और finger movement भी बहुत कम थी उस patient में, but that patient continued doing the activity more than 1000 times a day. After 6 months, after around 3 to 6 months, when we saw that patient again, the patient had a tremendous change in his wrist function. The patient right now was able to move his wrist almost up to the functional range. उनकी finger movements भी थी that had achieved a functional range. So yes, जितना ज्यादा आप एक्सरसाइज करोगे उतना ज्यादा बेनिफिट आपको ही होगा। तो मोर इज मैरियर, जितना ज्यादा करोगे उतना अच्छा है। So this is all about this session, all about this portion. Now I'd like to ask, अगर किसी को कोई क्वेश्चन पूछना हो या किसी को कुछ शेयर करना हो तो आप करते हो।
Thank you very much, Dr. Hansala and Dr. Stephen. I think indeed a काफी comprehensive presentation दी, lot of issues that you touched upon. I have some questions, but at the moment I will open it out to the participants. If they want to ask anything which is not clear, they can raise their hand and we can come to them. And Shruti ji can also help me in that. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Shruti ji. Aap hi kuch.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Hansal and Dr. Stephen. Very informative session. In fact, I had a lot of points to note down today. I think which will help us. Thank you so much. The first thing I wanted to ask was, recently on our visit to hospital, my husband is 4 years post-stroke with no like active wrist extension or finger extension. When we visited the occupational therapy department, he asked, what do you want from us? They started training him in wearing the shirt and all. I said, he's 100% independent at home. So they said, then you have everything. Go home and live happily. He's fine. When he is doing everything at home, when he is able to manage everything on his own, go home, live happily. This is what they said. So when I saw the session, today's agenda of the session, it's really very interesting. That is my biggest doubt. When they say functional independence, the person is able to manage himself, but not with his affected side, but still he wants to improve. He wants to work hard, he wants to improve. So how to progress on that aspect?
Now, that very good question that you have asked. Many physiotherapists and occupational therapists fight on this, that function is achieved, now what to do? But many a time, even I have seen in my patient, one of my patient I would share with you is not of stroke. The patient is having Hirayama disease. The patient has no functional limitation. But I'm still visiting that patient since last 2 years because his goal is to improve the girth of his muscles, which is wasted in Hirayama case. But if we see there is no visible, अगर वो उनका हाथ आप नहीं देखोगे तो आपको शायद पता भी नहीं चलेगा कि उनको हिरायामा या कुछ और प्रॉब्लम है. So yes, of course, this problem exists. That should you do something when you already are able to complete that activity? My answer is, of course, yes. You should go for it. But what depends is आपको कितना time देना पड़ेगा उस पे. How much amount of supplies you would have to provide to that? Is your husband able to go there alone or you have to go with him? उन्हें कितना practice करना पड़ेगा? Then वो task वो करना क्यों चाहते हैं left hand से, affected hand से? Many a times मैंने कई patients को देखा है कि उन्हें affected hand से करना ही होता है and कर भी लेते हैं. But the point is, उनकी present stage क्या है? Is he able to do at least some sort of movement from his affected hand? If he is able to do, yes.
He can close. Opening is the problem. In fact, lot of discussions that happen in the forum, there are many patients ask for that. How to open the fingers?
Open the fingers. That is one of the major difficulties in stroke. And I give you a shortcut. Okay, I give you a very good shortcut for that. That is functional electrical stimulation is available for that. Right now in India, it is also available, but researches are still going on functional electrical stimulation. Now there are automated functional electrical stimulation. Some are available with brain mapping. कि आपने सोचा कि फिंगर को एक्सटेंड करना है तो वो आपकी फिंगर को एक्सटेंड कर देगा. That is one of the shortcut that can be used. Okay. Even some functional electrical stimulation are available with the button switch. Switch can be placed on the opposite side on the same hand, or it can be placed at the triceps area. कि triceps को आपने activate किया तो that will activate your finger opening. But this instruments are very costly right now, and as far as India is concerned, for Indian people it is really few that I have seen. They cost around 5 to 10 lakh rupees, and their maintenance charges are very much. Right now in India, very few people are making it. In foreign, this is what I'm saying is called engineering and bionics implication on the human. Right now, major studies are done in this. Can be used for him open his hand, but let us say if he's able to do some form of hand opening, okay, thoda bhi hand opening kar rahe ho at this stage, go for practice, go for excessive practice. अगर थोड़ा हैंड ओपनिंग कर रहे हैं तो गो फॉर एक्सेसिव प्रैक्टिस प्लस प्रोवाइड हिम अ स्ट्रेचिंग बिकॉज इट इज पॉसिबल 4 इयर्स हो चुका है तो यहाँ पर कॉन्ट्रैक्चर डेवलप हो चुका होगा या फिर टाइटनेस डेवलप हो चुका होगा तो उसे हमें पहले रिड्यूस करना पड़ेगा क्योंकि कई बार ये होता है कि देयर इज पोटेंशियल टू एक्सटेंड द हैंड बट द मसल्स आर प्रिवेंटिंग द फ्लेक्सर ग्रुप ऑफ मसल्स आर प्रिवेंटिंग सो उसे थोड़ा स्ट्रेच करो और ज्यादा से ज्यादा प्रैक्टिस करो दिस इज व्हाट आई वुड सजेस्ट ओके
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Okay, before while other people come in, see, I just wanted to ask. Sometimes, you know, we have these questions also on the forum. Botox treatment. You know, people feel
Botox treatment,
yes, can help or may not help, etc. What is your or your experience about that treatment?
Depends upon the need of the patient. Sometimes the spasticity causes a lot of pain and disability of the patient. At such a patient, you should go for it. But if you think that Botox injection will lead to improvement in the function or regain the movement that are not possible or reactivate the muscles that are presently not active, so that is not possible. But yes, to reduce the contracture, to reduce the pain, to reduce the even social embarrassment, Botox is used. So yes, it depends upon the patient, but the goal should be well defined according to me.
Okay, but is it a kind of a permanent solution that once he goes on that, then he has?
No. That is not a permanent solution. I guess there are some time periods at which you have to continuously take them, according to me. But I'm not a medical person, so what is the dosage and all? I guess a medical person would be able to say that a better neurophysician would be able to answer that question properly. What is the dosage and how much? But as far as I have seen, I had experience with a patient before 6 years. The patient used to take it every year. At every winter, he used to take that because in winter he was having very rigid spasticity. Yeah.
Okay. Fine. Shruti Goyalji, if you can unmute yourself, speak up.
Thank you, Sodhi sir. Good evening, everyone. This is Shruti. I have my question with Mr. Stephen as well as Dr. Hansala. My husband had a hemorrhagic stroke. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, you're audible.
My husband had a hemorrhagic stroke 2 years ago. And now our doctor has suggested him to use his non-affected hand to do simple tasks. However, he is able to use his affected hand. That's not a problem. But he has suggested to use a non-affected hand to do simple tasks like brushing his teeth or try writing a few sentences or like coloring with his left hand. So I just wanted to know that whether this will help to build the connections within his brain and change the brain cell, within the brain, or it's just for the functional independence.
Just correct me once. Is he advised to use his affected hand or non-affected hand? I was not able to hear it carefully.
Non-affected hand was advised, if I'm right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's
okay. Is he able to do this activity from the affected hand?
Yes, definitely.
He is able to perform all the activities from the affected hand, right? So it is
almost
like
90 to 95% he is able to do.
Okay. So now if I ask you that for 10 years, don't sit on the floor with a crossed leg, right? After 10 years, would you be able to do that? Or
definitely
let us
not.
say, if I ask you, stop, here's my question. If I ask you for 5 years that do not bend forward, right? Would you be able to bend forward after 5 years? No, right? So it is as I said, it is a principle of neuroplasticity. Use it or lose it. If you use it, you will have it. If you do practice, you will improve it. But if you stop using it, that is definitely going to worsen the stage. So I'm not sure why your doctor has suggested you should once again consult and maybe ask what is the reason behind that. But as we included in this group, in this seminar, that as far as possible, you should use your affected hand.
Can you tell, did your physiotherapist advise you or neurophysician, neurosurgeon, something like that?
No, the neurophysician suggested us that.
And did he suggest for any specific activity or for the continuum of activities?
No. He suggested us for only 2-3 activities like brushing his teeth in the morning, or like writing a few sentences, probably 1 or 2 during the day, or even like coloring once a week with his left hand.
Okay.
I would like to differ a little from Dr. Stephen. What all he said is definitely true regarding neuroplasticity and the paretic side and everything. But nowadays there are other concepts also where for certain creative tasks and for tasks like brushing, which are repetitive, and in all those things like coloring and all those things, if it is practiced from the non-affective hand also, it promotes neuroplasticity and reorganization in the brain. So it would be for the total thing and not specific to the paretic side. So I think it would be better if you continue it, but do not stop from the paretic side. That is, you use both the extremities, the affected and the non-affected. Practice from the non-affected also, but keep continuing it from the paretic side also. That is my opinion for that.
Okay.
Yeah, actually he suggested.
I would like to add, as you said, I thought that he has to shift those activities from the affected end to the non-affected end. Now, what he has asked to do is a neurological game. इसे हम neurological game बोलते हैं. This is prescribed when the patient is able to do a lot of activities. Now, what happens during physiotherapy? The patient gets bored, and this causes a neurological fatigue. So to reduce the neurological fatigue, to provide an enthusiasm, to provide an encouragement to the patient, to provide a kick to the patient, we often ask the patient to do those activities. But those activities are to be done very rarely at very varied stage. Like if he's brushing his teeth in front of a mirror at the basin, you have to ask the patient to change his hand, sit outside of the room or at the chair, and then brush it. Give him a completely different environment to stimulate his neurons. That is why he would have asked. Okay.
Thank you so much for the answer. Thank you so much.
Okay, I think we will take up some questions in the chat. Somewhere, I think, Dr. Hanzala, in your presentation, you had something called MMSC and the active finger score. I was just curious, what are these, and are they normally practiced in a clinical environment that most people, would be aware of what they are? If you can elaborate upon that, please.
Yeah. I included that in the modifiable and non-modifiable factors, I think. It was the MMSE score. What is MMSE score? Is mini mental status examination. It is basically a questionnaire designed for assessing the cognitive status of the patient. In that questionnaire, you have questions like what place you are presently, what is the day, what is the time, if you can recall your family member's name or not. Then we give them a few things to recall, and then we ask it after a minute or so we can understand whether they have a short-term memory loss or long-term loss. So it is a questionnaire constructed of that format. So it helps us to see the cognitive status of the patient at the present time whenever it is taken. So if that it has a high score, that is 30 out of 30, then we can see that the person has a good cognitive status. If the score of that MMSE scale is less, then we can say that the cognition is not so good at the present moment. I included that for the factors which are essential for recovery. So if the score is high, the cognitive status is good, and so the chances of recovery are better. If the score is low, then the chances of recovery definitely are dependent on the low cognition. So that can be a barrier or a constraint. The next thing was active finger extension, whether the person is able to do active finger extension. So what is finger extension? This movement that I'm doing, I'm raising my fingers, right? That is extension. Active finger extension is कि आप खुद अपनी finger को ऐसे raise कर पा रहे हो. In the initial weeks or first month of stroke, if the patient is able to move his fingers like this, then it is said that he has a good control in the small muscles of the hand also. So that suggests that the recovery is good. Regarding the active finger extension score, it is nothing big. It's just the muscle strength that is assessed. If you are able to lift the finger against gravity, that is going to be 3. If you give some resistance, minimal resistance, and you're able to raise it, that is 4. If you give some good resistance, strong resistance, and you're able to raise your finger against that resistance, it is 5. If you're not able to raise your finger against gravity without any resistance, then you can do it in the horizontal plane against gravity like this. So this is 2, and if major like this movement is not seen, there's a bare traceable contraction in the muscles when we palpate it, that will be 1. So that is something which is seen for recovery, that if the active finger extension is there, we say that the recovery is going to be a little better. So that were the 2 things.
So these tests are part of standard clinical procedure, or does one have to be aware of them and then ask the doctors around?
No, they are a part of clinical procedure. Generally,
so
when a patient is admitted and hospitalized and the therapist comes to, see the patient, he will see all these initial things and he'll predict recovery based on all these things.
And normally these are done, for example, within 1 week of the stroke incident, or is there a time period in which?
See, it depends on the patient's status. Like if you're going to a patient and he's greeting you, he's awake, then definitely you can understand something that his cognition is good. He's able to orient to the condition. He's able to know that you're a doctor or you're a family member. You've come to meet him, what condition he's in. So every time it is not compulsory, but yes, it is a screening tool which is taken in case you see that there's any deficits in memory, in cognition. And then we can take it in the initial weeks or month, and then we can continue it for a period of time till we see that the cognitive deficits have been improved. Or you can also use it for follow-up. That is that on the first week of stroke hospitalization, the MMSE score was 15. So you can say that there was around moderate level of cognitive impairment. But after therapy, or you can say 3 to 6 months, the patient has improved, and the MMSE score from 15, it has jumped to 25. So you can say that was a good recovery level. So you can use it in either way, as a screening tool or as a follow-up.
As an indication of improvements as a consequence.
Exactly.
Dr. Stephen wanted to add something. Dr. Stephen?
Yes. If we say in a simple terms, what is cognition? Is cognition X3 बोलते हैं, X3. So that is patient is able or aware of time, place and person. अगर आप किसी patient को देखते हैं, वो उसे पता है कि ये time क्या है, आज कौन सा टाइम, अभी कौन सा टाइम है, वो कौन सी जगह पे है, और पर्सन को अगर वो रिकलेक्ट कर पाता है, लाइक हिज वाइफ और हिज डॉटर और सन और हिज हस्बैंड, राइट? सो दैट इज कॉल्ड X3, in which case we suggest that patient is functionally cognitive, is able to pursue all these things. So that is something that for screening purpose is used. But when we see that patient says, if I go right now in clinic and patient says that this is 1994, that is a direct hint that patient is having some cognitive affection and detailed analysis should be done. But many a times if the X3 is normal, it's fine. But yes, in the first week, it should be done. Then regularly, it may not be need to be done if X3 is normal. The active finger extension is nothing but आप अपनी fingers कितनी open कर पाते हो. That is simple. That is what I wanted to add.
Fine. Thank you. I think we'll proceed further on the chat if there are any. Okay. At one point, you also said something about HR max and RPE when you were talking of, maybe aerobic.
Yeah, intensity.
These terms.
heart rate maximum and is used for intensity. I used a heart rate maximum since it is a very easy to convert, right? Heart rate maximum is nothing but your age minus 220. If you minus your age from 220, let us say your age is 40 years. If you subtract it from 220, the remaining is 180. Okay. So up to 180 beats per minute, you can exercise, but you should not exercise above where your heart rate reaches more than 180 beats per minute.
Lost you for a minute there.
HR max.
No, we lost you for a minute, doctor. What were you saying?
So
you're talking about how to come to HR max. I subtract your age from 220 and you have the HR max. And then of course the percentage determines how much of that HR max you should not exceed when you're doing your exercise.
Yes, that is heart rate maximum. You should not exceed that limit. That is 180 अगर किसी की maximum heart rate है, so during exercise your heart rate should not go above 180. Okay, so percentage निकाल लो. That is your intensity of exercise. If you want to do low intensity exercise, moderate intensity exercise, and high intensity exercise, that is how I divided that. And right now if you see, pulse oximeter is easily available at home, so you can see that at what intensity you are doing exercise. At least a stroke patient should do exercise 20 to 30 minutes a day for 3 days a week regularly. This will prevent the recurrence of stroke and improve the functional ability, improve the cardiovascular health.
And what is RPE? Was it the term there, RPE? What was that?
Rate of, that is a scale that we use. That is rate of perceived exertion. Simple terms में बोले तो it is आपको कितना थकान महसूस हो रहा है. That is a scale. It starts from 6 to 20. So if you download that scale, if you see that scale, there is written very, very light, moderately heavy, very, very heavy intensity. So likewise, you can feel कि आपको कितना फील हो रहा है, कि आप कितना थकान महसूस कर रहे हो, उससे आप उसे मेजर कर सकते हो. इट इज आल्सो अ वेरी इजी टूल टू मेजर इंटेंसिटी ऑफ एक्सरसाइज, but it is not very reliable, but yes, it is very easy to use and a patient can use independently. So these two things that are included, patient can do independently. There is no need of a therapist or anyone. Yeah.
Let's go further down. There are many thanks and for the efforts that you made.
You're welcome.
Mr. Bappa says, I wanted to know how can we implement CIMT or modified CIMT for bilaterally affected patients? I am not, that is a question by Mr. Bappa. I don't know whether he's here now. So if you would like to talk a bit about that, what are bilaterally affected patients? Just as a layman, if you can firstly, elaborate a bit upon that.
Okay. These are very, very few cases that even I have seen 1 or 2 cases of bilateral affection. जब patient को दोनों ही side पे affection होता है, right side and left side both are affected. In that case, what should be done? और कई बार ऐसा होता है कि previous stroke होता है left side पे होता है, नया stroke होता है वो right side पे होता है. So patient gets both side affection. तो तब क्या करना चाहिए? So if the patient, as I said, के selection criteria है CIMT के लिए. So first we have to see if the patient is eligible or not for the CIMT. If patient is eligible, is the patient eligible both the side, right side भी eligible है, left side भी eligible है? अगर हाँ, तो as I said, you can do the CIMT as it was mentioned in the session. it is no issue. But of course, then the patient would have to do 2 hours of exercise at the left side, 2 hours of exercise at the right side as a modified CIMT protocol. Or you can do one thing, you can alternately do, one day you do 3 hours for left side, another day you do 3 hours for the right side. That is also fine. But yes, selection of the patient is must. And it can be used. CIMT can easily be used. Even task-oriented training can be easily used. But I would rather suggest for the bilateral task, daily life task, जो होते हैं जैसे कपड़े पहनना है, ड्राइविंग करना है, कुछ ऑब्जेक्ट उठाना है, कुछ नीचे रखना है, कुछ शिफ्ट करना है, तो उन सारी चीजों में ज्यादातर 2 हाथ की जरूरत पड़ती है. तो फॉर दैट एक्टिविटीज TOT इज बेटर. CIMT तभी यूज करना चाहिए जब एक्टिविटी वन हैंडेड है, जैसे राइटिंग है, जैसे मॉपिंग है, स्वीपिंग है, वो सारी एक्टिविटी आप एक ही हाथ से करने वाले हो तो गो फॉर इट. ओके. Or other activities like waving or some other activities, any drinking or eating, that can many a times patient only eats from one hand in many a religions and many a sect. So that can be done. So we can use that. But for the activities जिसमें दोनों हाथ की जरूरत है, go for task oriented training only.
Okay, fine. Thank you. We are reaching about 7:30, but okay, I'll just quickly say what else is, if there's anything. I'm not very sure, but Ashpra Jain says, we recently saw a patient who's 80 years old, has a problem with comprehension. So how effective will any of the treatment will be? And what, according to you, is the best option for the same? He is KCO hypertension and CKD. If you can address that. No, including.
Sorry, I did not get it.
He says there is Ashpra Jain who says, we recently saw a patient who is 80 years old and has a problem with comprehension. So
okay.
How effective will any of this treatment be, and what are the best options? He says he's KCO, hypertension, and CKD. I don't know what they
case of hypertension. I'm not sure why he has it in CKD. Okay. So first of all, since it is a point of comprehension, it is a perception, think of perception. What today we have discussed was just about motor functions, right? We did not discuss anything about perception management or sensory management. For sensory management, sensory integration therapy is only present right now, and some other stimulation techniques are there. But for perception training, or if I say for the prognosis of this patient, for comprehension, so majority of the researchers, I would say 90% of the researchers are suggesting right now, if the patient, अगर किसी patient का speech or comprehension, if these two things are to recover, these things will recover within 15 to 30 days. अगर 15 to 30 days में speech और comprehension recover नहीं होता, so there will be a greater amount of difficulty for this patient to regain them. Now, for this patient, as I said, restorative techniques and rehabilitative techniques. So rehabilitative techniques में कई available है that can be used, that may allow patient to comprehend properly, but researches are very lacking in this area, and comprehension, if to come, should come within 15 to 30 days. After that, you have to do immense amount of practice. One of the technique that is used is you have to select a patient and you have to make him sit in a room. You have to sit with him in a room and try to communicate with him very slowly, very gradually. Let the patient see what he is understanding. You try to understand what the patient is saying and try to correct that patient. But this is again one type of constant induced movement therapy. उसी का principle use करके ये बनाया गया था technique. But again, the effectiveness and all is not very much.
See, the patient, as you mentioned, has a problem in comprehension. And when you're talking about motor learning and the problems related to motor learning, definitely we have to take the principles of motor learning into consideration. But that will be, I think, a therapist's point where he designs a protocol based on all those constraints and facilitators. You can definitely incorporate it with the task-oriented training. But comprehension problems, like, I don't think we need a specific kind of a different strategy for that. If, as you suggested, motor learning and the principles of motor learning, if you incorporate it in the same practice for task-oriented especially, I think that will help a lot.
Fine. Okay, CKD is chronic kidney disease, as has been pointed out by some people. That is CKD. Other thing, if anyone has any questions, you can raise your hand if you want to. And I just had one more question that I wanted to ask you. Okay, I just as an aside or maybe as a ancillary question, in your practice, what role do you see of alternative therapies? You know, like acupuncture, Ayurveda, some people go to Panchkarma, etc. Is there conclusive evidence that you see that they help or they don't help?
Frankly speaking, Ayurveda, well, let's start with Ayurveda. So it is a preventive technique. It's a preventive medicine. So of course, if the patient has a good belief in that and patient wants to try that, we always suggest that go for it. We don't restrict any patient from going for Ayurveda. Acupuncture, I myself have seen 2 patients that were worsened by acupuncture, but I'm not sure very much of if the acupuncture is helpful or not. But since I have seen 2 patients that were worsened, the patient had a potential to reach almost his pre-stroke stage, but was going for acupuncture for around 3 to 4 months after stroke. Then they came to us. Then the patient was very good, active, but the patient was not able to do anything. The patient said that he used to go there and he used to sleep, and they used to do acupunctures on him. So I have not personally seen any effect of acupuncture. So I do not suggest my patient, but if yes, they want to try it so hard, go for it. Ayurveda, go for it. It's no problem. Something that we suggest is yoga or meditation. The reason behind that, it improves your cognition, it improves your mental image, it helps to relax. More the person is relaxed, the more person would be able to exercise, and there would be a higher chance of neuroplasticity. So yoga does help, or meditation does help. So such alternative therapies has up to certain point some effects, some bad effects, but yeah, it depends upon the patient, and the patient wants to do, then of course we cannot do anything. We can just suggest that these are the present available things for this management. Yeah.
Fine. I think I will take Mr. Subhash's question, then we'll come to Anuradha ji. Well, he says there's a lot of tremor of head, which is disturbing his ability to stand. The patient had brainstem stroke in April. What would you suggest? Is this something which physiotherapy or your practice can help in?
First of all, this patient should be relaxed during an exercise.
Yes, Dr. Hansala, you wanted to say something? Then we'll come to...
I was just asking that if you could elaborate that. He just explained the problem, that is there are tremors in the head. If he could just say that how they're interrupting his exercise or his activity schedule or something like that, we could have suggested something. We could suggest something better.
Subhashi, if you are there, if you can unmute yourself and maybe speak up.
Good evening, doctor.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, he is able to do the exercises with his legs. And that physical physiotherapy done by the physiotherapist, but he is not able to sit on his own, or is not able to stand on his own. And walking, he is doing walking with the help of 2 people, because he has affected on the left side of his body. Hello.
Can you tell what is the time duration since he's got a stroke?
In April 23rd, he got it.
Okay. And he's able to use his lower extremities. I could not get you clearly. Can you please repeat that portion?
I mean, he is able to do the cycling, ma'am. Cycling, what is that cycle? What is that cycle is called?
Yeah, it's fine. Static cycle or
Yeah, cycling, that one only. But he is not able to sit or stand, or he is not able to walk. He is bending. The physiotherapist is saying that because of his tremors, he is not able to stand and walk.
Okay, patient, as you say, patient is bending forward.
Yeah, exactly. He's bending forward and his head is having tremors.
So, since the brainstem is affected, the patient is having dyskinesia, and it is he is showing features of Parkinson. So, I guess you should continue with your medications. Medications helps a lot in this dyskinesia. I just want to ask one more thing. Did he have a Parkinson before stroke?
No. He doesn't have anything. He was only hypertensive and.
He's having. So he's having. Okay. Yeah. He's showing features of Parkinson. So I guess the medication would help a lot. For physiotherapy is concerned, the first point is relaxation of the patient. As much as he would be relaxed, the tremor would go away. If he's more relaxed, the tremor would be gone. The environment, give him some open environment. The third thing is do not rush with the patient. Start everything very, very gently, very softly. Make him stand slowly. After standing, let him stand for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Let him stand for a while, and then provide him some form of gait training. The tremors, according to me, would stay for quite a time, but medication should help. With physiotherapy, they would reduce. With physiotherapy and medication, they would reduce a lot. Hansala, you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to add that you said that he's not able to sit properly. So is it solely because of the tremors that he's not able to sit properly, or as you said that it's a stroke since April? So is it this year? And
this year,
like having enough strength in his core such that he can sit? Because that can also be a factor. Like the tremors in the head can be a confounder for that condition, but does he have the enough strength to sit in his core?
No, he has enough strength, ma'am, but in first 2 months there was not much of physiotherapy done, so he has lost the strength. And 3rd month again we have got the physiotherapy done, and he is able to do certain things.
Okay. So then I would like to advise that you continue some strengthening or core activation exercises also, and along with that add meditation or yoga such that it reduces the tremor, relaxation or some sort of exercises for that, and work on the core, because I think the core would be a little weak.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
One more thing that I would like to add, just ask the patient to turn, while sitting, just ask the patient to turn from one side to another side. Rotation of the trunk karwao unko, so
that he is able to do on the bed itself, no?
Okay. I am asking, even in the sitting position, make him turn like this. Okay. Or make him turn his head like this. This should gradually reduce the tremor. Okay, rhythmic movements, slow movements, and rotatory movements karvaunga.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Anuradha ji, if you can unmute yourself, put your question, then I think Can you? Yes.
I joined in late, but there was some conversation about comprehension. So, doctor, my mother had stroke in February, and she had stroke again in August. So what do you mean by comprehension? If comprehension it comes within 15 to 30 days. It starts coming or it's come all over, like पूरा का पूरा वो ठीक हो जाता है या थोड़ा मतलब start हो जाता है ठीक होना?
No, within 15 to 30 days, within 15 to 30 days, almost 80 to 90% of comprehension should come, and which happens in around 90% of the patient. Only very few patients are left who are not having comprehension and speech after 1 month.
Okay, so my mother's speech is quite clear. वो बिल्कुल साफ बोलती हैं, मगर उनको nouns के साथ दिक्कत है. Like if she wants to tell कि पंखा चला दो, तो she would say घास काट लो or something like that. So then it becomes little. Now we are starting to understand because whatever she's
was it before at February too, or it started from August?
No, it was from February. It has reduced after August.
Okay.
See,
so right now,
yeah. See, I would say that it will depend. It's like Dr. Stephen said that within 15 to 20 days, 80% gets recovered. But again, there are multiple factors which play a role, like which is the location where she had a stroke.
Earlier it was in backside, right side. Now it is here in frontal lobe also.
Okay.
Frontal right.
See, you said the broader area, but see, there are multiple specific areas, small areas, which have been enumerated for multiple functions. So, as you said, like the frontal lobe and the occipital lobe is affected, but we need you can say a better idea, precise idea of which area is affected, and based on that, it can be said.
Okay.
That,
one thing that I would like to add here. As you said, now you are able to understand her, right?
Yeah.
Now there would be some sides of word that she replaces with other sides of word. Is it so? And which happens regularly. So same sides of word are replaced for other sides of word.
Okay.
Is it so? Or every time she's saying
using different word? Yeah. Now what has happened?
Okay.
अगर वो पंखा बोलना चाहती है तो परी भी बोल देती है. Like first alphabet is usually correct. The first sound.
Okay.
So it's now 1.5 months now. So
okay. Yeah. Okay. So we can say that the patient is recovering right now. The second thing that I can ask to you is make her, if you can, make her say some things. Okay.
Right
and
now?
Make sure that, no. I'm just saying that as a treatment portion, just give her 5 to 10 things to say in a day.
Okay.
Okay. Not more than 5. Start with 5 to 10 things. Repeat it continuously for a week. If the patient is able to cope up with that, the patient is able to learn those words. Because right now what will happen, the patient may not go into restitution. Neuroplasticity पे अभी जाना पड़ेगा. So it would be substitution of the function. जो एरिया डैमेज हुआ है उसका फंक्शन कोई और एरिया करेगा, या तो जिस तरह से वो पहले समझते थे उससे अलग तरीके से वो समझने की कोशिश करेंगे. Okay. So like vision or sensory function would be used, other sensory function would be used to perceive an object and to answer an object or name something. Okay. And give her time. Never ask her to say fast. Okay. Speed में reply देने की बिल्कुल भी जरूरत नहीं. अगर 1 मिनट के बाद भी सही आंसर देते हैं तो it is fine. Okay. So go for it.
Yeah, now she thinks, and earlier she used to repeat whatever we say. Now she try to understand, then she think, and then she replies like, "आज क्या दिन है? आज दिन है या रात है? सर्दी है या गर्मी है? Whatever." So she gave a, yeah.
One more thing I would add is just consult once with a speech therapist, if possible. Okay.
We did
they would be
speech
able to help
therapy
you
for
more.
6 months.
Okay.
When she had stroke in February. So because she was not able to swallow only, तो वहाँ से शुरू हुआ था.
Okay. Yeah.
And then she started speaking, and now, yeah, we comprehend.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, just to add in, as Dr. Stephen ने भी कहा, Radha ji, Mitali भी कह रही है that maybe she needs also still further some approaches of speech therapy. You know, that's a possibility that probably you need to check up. We'll just take.
Yes.
I'll just take one more question in the chat, and then Shruti has a question, and then we'll close it. We're already at 10:43. This is Shweta who's saying, can you please elaborate GMI and MRP? What are these GMI and MRP? Shweta Karolia in the chat, she has put that question. Maybe these are some treatment techniques that you talked about in the presentation.
GMI and MRP, basically there are two approaches. GMI is graded mental imagery, where the tasks that you need to do, or the goal, the tasks which are your goal to be performed, are mentally practiced before they are done physically. So that is GMI, graded motor imagery, mental imagery, and MRP is motor relearning program, where multiple strategies are taken which focus on relearning the tasks which are lost, and for improving the neuroplasticity and changes in the brain. So there are basically two kinds of approaches which are used in practice.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Shruti ji, you wanted to say something? Yeah, you can. Shruti Pururai.
Yes. This is regarding mirror therapy. How much would you recommend mirror therapy at home? Like anybody has a mirror at home, or they have a big, big mirror
graded motor imagery practice. We see it is also used by many of the players. Hello.
We lost your sound there for a minute, Dr. Stephen.
Okay. Can you repeat the question?
Yes, she was talking about mirror therapy and its effectiveness. You were saying something, then the voice.
Okay. Mirror therapy, that depends at what stage your patient is right now, and no, a normal mirror cannot be used in that. Mirror therapy functions like you have to place affected hand within a cubic or within a place which is covered with a mirror. So, and you are perceiving that hand as your affected hand is inside, and your non-affected hand is outside. And in the mirror, you are able to see your non-affected hand. Okay. And you have to perceive that your non-affected hand in the mirror is your affected hand. And then you have to do movements with your non-affected hand. This will stimulate your brain. Brain को ऐसा लगेगा कि नहीं affected hand से movement हो रही है. So ये जो sensory stimulation है, visual stimulus, it will go to the brain and it will create neuroplasticity. That is one of the basic assumptions in that. So that is how it is used. But yes, in that, the affected hand should not be visible, and the non-affected hand should be placed in such a way, and mirror should be kept in such a way that it seems like the mirror image is of affected hand should be perceived, but it is actually a non-affected hand.
Okay, so it would need specific positioning of mirrors and some knowledge.
Specific, yes,
to be performed. So maybe may not be very, let's say, very easy.
It cannot be performed with the patient without help of therapist.
I think there is one more question, but we will take it in the group now because we are already almost at reaching 8. So thank you very much, Dr. Hansala and Dr. Stephen. Very nice and presentation. Thank you very much for all your efforts. And of course, I'm sure the participants also learned a lot and they're taking some learnings, useful learnings from here. Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you again, Dr. Hansala, Dr. Stephen. And I'm closing the meeting now.
Welcome.
Thank you.